So great to see all of you here. I want to start with the question based on what we just heard. I don't know, Glenn and Amit, if you could see that presentation that we just had from Taipei, but it was pretty fascinating to see how much innovation there has been and how much acceptance in society. So, Glenn, maybe I can start with you, because what we heard from Sasha there was we don't have a holistic approach in Europe when it comes to mobility and innovation. Is that true, and how do you address that?
I certainly agree that it's true in the UK. The last time we had a truly integrated transport strategy was 20 years ago. And although we have various initiatives, we seem now to be stuck with a dual challenge of what we call in the UK the industrial strategy. You may have learnt we made this very wise decision to leave Europe just as the world descends into chaos. And the industrial strategy is about creating wealth and jobs, which is very different to a strategy for sustainable mobility that supports prosperous and thriving cities and well-being. And so, yes, we struggle. I think it's the holy grail of transportation planning is to have integration, and it's very hard to secure.
Amit, what can you tell us about that from your perspective there in India? I mean, what do you think that cities, countries in Europe can learn about the type of adoption of new technologies and services that you see there?
Yeah, I think some of the things that can be very interesting is, for example, if you look at the electric mobility piece, a lot of conversation revolves around how do you get an electric car. But one of the innovation that we have seen in India is this whole innovation called an electric rickshaw. It's a three-wheeled, low-powered vehicle, and a fantastic innovation on how do you solve the first and last mile. And if you look at the way it has come, it's just come on its own, and it's now estimates show anywhere between 12 to 13 million of such vehicles are, 1.2 to 1.3 million such vehicles are flying all over the country. But it has come on its own, and it's a local innovation which has come and factored in a demand for these kind of vehicles, and it is supplying this. So it's very unregulated, but I think what we can learn from this is innovation does not even require regulation. And what we need to do well is then how do you define the problem and then leave it for the markets to come and solve the problem. And that is something which has come up very interesting, and we are still not sure how to regulate it, because if you over-regulate it, then you are killing the innovation. And then if you just leave it free for all, then you get all kinds of externalities. But that is an interesting piece to look and learn and maybe adopt as we move forward.
Jürgen, what is your perspective on this? You have decades of experience working in Africa as well. What kind of innovations in mobility have you seen there that you think could be well adopted here?
I think in sub-Saharan Africa, especially in the big cities which are growing fast, we could see that the digitalization takes place fast. And we have, for instance, in Nairobi, a system where passengers of matatus, of minibuses, 35-seaters, 14-seaters, they are connected. And there is an app you can use to recommend certain drivers and also claim if drivers are misbehaving and driving unsafely, for instance. And that has improved, for instance, the safety in the city. Another innovation is the so-called Safe Boda. Boda is a motorcycle taxi in very many cities, and Kampala has 150,000 motorcycle taxis, creating lots of accidents, hazardous accidents every day. And there was an innovation that they unified through the internet. They unified those Boda drivers who want to drive safely. And they organized it by wearing orange helmets. And so you can identify, if you want to get a taxi in the city, people are now choosing especially the orange taxis, the motorcycle taxi drivers with the orange helmet. And this also increased the traffic safety, because we have 1.3 million people dying on the roads every year. And many of them are, I think, 600,000 or so in African cities. So these are some of the improvements I can see.
Michael, do you think that there is anything like a global solution when it comes to mobility, a global approach? Is there a global approach when it comes to mobility solutions? Is there something that we can apply globally?
I think that the solutions made all around the world, they are very local solutions which depend strongly on the, as we say, initial conditions you have. That is, you have separated scenarios which will end up in different scenarios depending on the energy resources, depending on the culture, on the population, and the infrastructure. Normally, what I didn't mention in my talk is that the infrastructure is at the end of a planning process. Normally, the people plan things, business, economy, and at the end they say, okay, now we want also to have traffic. And I think this is not a global, you can't find a global solution for this problem. And therefore, we will have a chaotic situation all around the world, since there is no unique answer to many of the questions we heard over the 2 days. And there are some special solutions, but they are not portable. You cannot scale them, say the Copenhagen or something like that. It's difficult to transport it to somewhere else. We heard it's if you go to Africa or somewhere else. Also the energy problem. If you have much sun, you can have other resources than we have in Germany. You really have to work out plans for every special situation.
Okay, so you have to kind of really tailor it to where you are. Edwin, what is your view on this? Because you also have experience working around the world, and Cradle, we should say, has offices in Silicon Valley and Tel Aviv. So what is your view on a type of global solution, at least when looking at mobility?
Yeah, so first of all, just to introduce what Cradle is doing. So we're based here in Berlin, and we are basically the partnership and venture arm of Hyundai for Europe. We have sister organizations in Silicon Valley, in Tel Aviv, and in Beijing, and everyone is trying to look for new innovations in every region to identify new opportunities for Hyundai to become more than just a car maker. So we look into areas like mobility, smart city, energy, and robotics, all mixed up with innovative technologies. And try to find how can we make the company future-proof in a way that finding new business domains where Hyundai at one point can be active. So right now, specifically here in Europe, when it comes to mobility, we are trying to explore currently as a car maker, where is our position, where is our strengths, respectively, how can we respond to new changes which are happening, like for instance COVID. So identify what can we do when it comes to hygiene in the car, what technologies are going to be relevant there. So looking into those technologies, finding ways to implement or test them, and then to decide whether this is something we want to do in the future or not. And typically we would work with startups and look into these new innovations, and as a result, eventually invest in those startups or find other ways to partner with them. If I look at our current activities when it comes to mobility, or even if I go a step further, based on the discussions we have, smart city, the way we see smart city, or where we can see where can we play a role there, being a car maker or a vehicle producer is a lot around, of course, moving people from A to B in a safe, environmental friendly and convenient way, efficient way, but also looking what happens when we are not moving the people, what happens with the vehicles, where can we put them, or where should they be put, not to disturb the traffic and all that. So parking is one of the areas we are looking into a lot, and also investing in startups who have innovations there, just to make sure that all aspects of this kind of mobility is being considered.
Okay, Amit, if we can come back to you now. For those stakeholders who are responsible for actually decision-making when it comes to an urban level, for example, on a city level, they also have to somehow have some sort of sympathy for the cultural context and for the human behavior of the city within which they're working. Do you have the feeling that that is something that is actually factored into solutions?
Actually, not really, because typically the way the cities operate is that it's mostly a cookie cutter approach in terms of solution, without understanding the context, without understanding the need, and even understanding the data, whether this needs or not. So I'll give you a couple of examples, right? So Delhi Metro is hugely successful. And after that, there's a series of requests which is coming from cities that they want metro. Cities are saying, give me a 5-kilometer or 10-kilometer metro, that's fine, but I need a metro. Now, a 5-kilometer of metro or 10-kilometer of metro is not going to solve the problem of a city. But again, because that's the aspiration, right? So that's one way. And similarly, what we are saying is that without understanding, so a lot of times the solution which will work are thought to be outdated. So for example, improving sidewalk. We know that it does massively for walking and cycling and road safety, but cities typically don't consider it as an infrastructure investment. Creating cycle tracks, that was not considered as an infrastructure improvement. So typically there is this whole notion that we need big money, mega projects, only then it will qualify as an infrastructure investment. I think we have to start looking at some of these things which work well and does not require that much capital investment to qualify as a priority infrastructure investment which cities need, which unfortunately is not the focus right now at city level.
Glenn, why do you think there is this dissonance, if you will, between, and you touched upon this a little bit in your talk, between the behavior of people and their needs and desires, which can be conflicting, of course, but regardless, between that and what we end up receiving sometimes from urban and city planners?
I think it relates in part to, and it was touched upon by one of the other speakers, we've had a paradigm in transport and city planning of what I would call demand-led supply. So these really quite amazing situations where we're adding yet another lane to the highway because somebody has forecast there'll be more traffic. And what we really need to do, because in fact, what you're getting there is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Human behavior changes as you change the circumstances. So if you turn that around and you have supply-led demand, then this is about being vision-led and saying, what are the types of outcomes that we want for our cities? And how do we start influencing the supply side with a view that the demand will follow? Now, of course, there's a dialogue there between what people feel they currently need versus what we feel might be collectively beneficial for the city and indeed for issues of equity, because I think one of the problems and challenges we face is that many of us are in the position of privilege, middle class, technologically minded perhaps, and looking at technology-driven solutions that suit us and our lifestyles without recognizing that there is this great heterogeneity of how people are living their lives. But what I would like to stress is we focus very much on mobility solutions. And as I said in my talk, a lot of mobility solutions ultimately are trying to make a profit, which is not necessarily in tune with what's best for city outcomes. But really the reason we travel is to gain access to people, goods, services and opportunities. It's not the only means by which we can gain access. So with proximity, with good spatial planning, you can overcome the need for more motorized mobility. But even more importantly, as we've experienced globally with this pandemic, we have the telecommunication system now that provides digital connectivity. So we have what I call a triple access system of the land use, the transport, and the telecommunication system. And when we're doing our planning, we really have to wake up and understand that that's the world we live in. We've adjusted our behaviors during COVID. We'll be readjusting them as we emerge out of COVID. And cities have an opportunity to influence the shaping of that system and in turn how people's behavior responds.
Okay. Jürgen, coming to you now, if you look at the current state of mobility industries, what do you say is working really well and what do you say we absolutely have to work on?
I think finally it's about livability. And I also share your view that we need local solutions to reach that level of happiness of our people. That's something we have to achieve. And the question whether we can adopt models like from Copenhagen or other cities is a crucial question. I personally have the experience that when we invited political leaders to go on study tours to the places where transportation problems are solved in infrastructure, technology, and behavior. When these politicians came back to their countries, they were enthusiastic about change, and they wanted to change something. One example is that in 2008, we took the former mayor of Bogota, Penalosa, and we made a world tour with him to showcase what he did in his city. Bogota was a city of crime in the 80s. 2000, it was the city who receives delegations from all over the world to show the best practice. It was a lighthouse project for the rest of the world when it comes to mass rapid transit. And he, I think, injected a lot of political leaders to do the same, adjusted to the local conditions, of course. And I think to solve our problems in mobility, we need a menu of interventions, and we need the right roles for the different actors. So we need definitely more political commitment, but we need also, and that is also in the direction of Africa, we need also a stronger civil society. The business is there, and the technological options are there. We have to see what is desired and what is acceptable.
Okay, a stronger civil society. Michael, what do you think if you look at mobility industries today? Where would you say you're satisfied and where would you say you're not? I know the acoustics are a bit difficult up here. Where would you say you're satisfied with the way that the current state of mobility industries, and where would you say you're not?
I would say it is a question of the viewpoint you take. So if you, from which point you look, you have, on one hand, you have the users, you have people who are building the systems, planners. On the third hand, you have then people who want to earn money with it all over the world. So these are interests which don't coincide in many of these cases, in addition to the different situations you have there. And the question is, we heard about that in also what the role of the politics in this case, since politicians, we see, they don't think like traffic scientists or like planners. And the decisions are very often made simply on an economic level. That is, they want, it should not cost too much, and it should be ready within the next 4 years. Then the next elections come, and then you choose the simplest solution, but this solution will not then solve the problem. And this is, in many cases that I know the question, and at the end of my talk, you don't have much time. And then the next generation comes. So you see that the Berlin airport, it is now already, it is an old airport, but it never worked up to now. And the next generation will have a completely different understanding. And then they would never build it like it is now. And so if you wait too long, the solutions already have survived. And the younger generations will make completely different things. They don't want to own cars. They want to use mobility, but not to own things which cost much money. And then we have a completely different situation already. What is that? Learning and all these things. Learn about the understanding of mobility.
That's an interesting point. And Edwin, you come from the side of, if we talk about those interests that Michael just mentioned, of the side of a mobility player that perhaps is, of course, looking to make money on mobility from a traditional mobility player, but you're with Cradle that's looking at it from a new perspective. So how do you see these conflicting interests, and where do you see need for improvement?
Yeah, so let me put it as a car maker. Hyundai is extremely interested and committed to find or to build vehicles which are sustainable, whether it's electric and also which was also announced here at the event, a lot into the hydrogen fuel cell powered EVs. And so we are fully convinced that this is the right way to go, but knowing well also about the ongoing challenges we have, and which we, as Cradle, are actively looking for and finding technologies to improve that. So one thing is, of course, the cost of ownership of such vehicles, to reduce that. But more importantly, even in this round, I think the infrastructure of fueling station is one of the areas we are also investing in and building up. So I would say that is one of the key steps which needs to be taken in that sense. And it's actually also the same for electric vehicles. When you live in the city, you always have the issues of finding a charging station. So these are the areas typically which we are actively looking in that. And I think the important message we would like to the people to understand, hydrogen is working, and we are not just eager to sell the cars, but we also want to offer really the infrastructure behind that, so people feel like they are taken care of even after purchasing the car. Yep.
Well, our time is running out, so I'll just ask one last question that will go around the room here and also to our two guests joining us virtually to get your take. This panel is about interdisciplinary approaches, so I'd ask where you see the greatest potential for more synergy and more of an interdisciplinary approach to mobility. And Amit, we'll start with you in Delhi.
No, absolutely. I think the greatest synergies will come when the land use planning is integrated with transport planning. Right now, the way it happens, land use is planned in isolation, and then the mobility guys come and try to fix something up. It doesn't work. Integrated land use planning with transport will give huge benefit to everyone involved, but it's easier said than done.
Okay, Glenn.
I absolutely agree with interdisciplinarity. The reality is that much of the discussion in this session has been around essentially talking about wicked problems. These are not issues we can solve. We have to navigate and negotiate them. And this is about diversity of thinking. And I'm sorry to say, in the transport sector, we're still not very good at harnessing that diversity. You have technology-oriented advocates for autonomous vehicles. You have urban planners who find them appalling. They don't talk to one another. Actually, they could both help each other, ensuring that we get the best from the technologically enabled possibilities, but in the context of responsible innovation.
Yeah, I fully agree with our Indian colleague. I think the correlation between land use planning and transportation planning must be linked much more. And in addition, we have to combine the transport sector with the energy sector in future. Because the energy plays a big role. And when I see the development in some countries, mobility is coming now in packages. So if I provide mobility options, I should also solve the energy supply for this option. I think this is a very important point, and I would like to mention finally that we have to engage the youth in all this. We have to create a moment of understanding for a new mobility culture in the young generations, because I think we, above 50, above 60, we will not change very much. But the future is depending on what the young generations think and do.
Very true. Michael.
I think in many respects we are just at the beginning of understanding how this non-linear dependencies really work. So we are trying many things all around without knowing what the result will be. But science has to contribute in the sense that they give the basis for what is the standard for all over the world, what is portable, and what is that what you have to add. But I think we didn't understand really the interrelations of all the aspects, and it will take many years really then to build up a model will work all around the world, but at that time we will have a completely different situation. As we saw in India, rural and urban traffic difference. We are now studying the system as it is now, but what is in 10 years, 20 years, we don't know, and we cannot forecast this now, really.
Hopefully we'll have a Berlin airport by then at least. We can hope for that. Edwin.
Yeah, I mean, for us, any kind of challenge is an opportunity. We, as in our functions, we are actually looking for these, finding those, and then trying to solve that with smart technology, but also smart implementation, and also education to the people to really understand what they're facing and take away some fear and whatever they might feel about that, and then come up with innovations and good technologies.
Thank you all very much for sharing your expertise, your insights, for staying with us there in Delhi and in England, and it was really great to have this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.